Hello and welcome everyone to the daily news analysis of 25th of November 2023। तो इम्पोर्टेंट आर्टिकल आज 8 जो हैं ये पूरा दिया गया है। पहला जो उड़ीसा revokes note for transfer of tribal land to non-tribals, then PM sets in motion process for Madiga sub-categorization, then no vote for veto, need for climate-smart agriculture in India, trust between India and Australia will help Indo-Pacific region. Then next है closely monitoring outbreak of avian influenza cases according to government. Then generic drugs for 4 rare diseases made available in India. Falling recovery, delay in resolution dent IBC's success. पहला है उड़ीसा रिवोक्स नोट फॉर ट्रांसफर ऑफ ट्राइबल लैंड टू नॉन ट्राइबल्स। The Navin Patnaik government on Friday announced that it has withdrawn the decision to amend the Odisha Scheduled Areas Transfer of Immovable Property by Scheduled Tribes Regulation 1956, which would have allowed the transfer of tribal land to non-tribals. The government had put the decision on hold on November 14 after facing flack from tribal groups and the opposition. The regulation not only prohibits the transfer of tribal land but also criminalize any forced alienation is in scheduled areas. A cabinet meeting held in the middle of the winter session of the State Assembly approved the proposal of withdrawing the decision to amend the regulation. In a statement in the Assembly on Friday, Revenue and Disaster Management Minister Sudham Marandi said the Cabinet had on November 14 taken a decision to amend the regulation based on the recommendation of the Tribal Advisory Council TAC held on July 11. Now, the Cabinet had again recommended further deliberation of the issue in the Tribal Advisory Council. He said it is rare on part of the BJD led government to take back its own decision twice in 10 days. Opposition parties and tribal rights activists had declared that the prohibition on transfer of tribal land to non tribals was not non negotiable, arguing that permission for land transfer in scheduled areas would open the food floodgates to land of tribals being snatched. The proceedings of the winter session were also affected with BJP MLAs spearheading the protest. A BJP delegation had met Governor Raghubar Das on Thursday accusing the state government of manipulating the TAC recommendation in order to have its way. Relaxation was demanded for tribal to obtain bank loan for agriculture, construction of residential houses, and higher studies of the children only. But the government has approved the transfer of immovable property of tribals to others in scheduled areas, which was not unanimous unanimously agreed upon in the TAC meeting, the delegation said in a note to the governor. Next, PM sets in motion process for Madiga sub-categorization. Days ahead of assembly election in Telangana, Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Friday set in motion the process of setting up a committee that will go into the issue of sub-categorization of Madiga community within the scheduled caste, a long pending demand. No details given. Government sources said Mr. Modi met with Cabinet Secretary Rajiv Goba and other officials for this purpose. No other details was provided on the timeline of the setting up of the committee. At a program organized by the community leader Manda Krishna Madiga on November 11, Mr. Modi promised that his government was committed to providing sub-categorization to Madigas. From today, Munda Krishna, founder of the Madiga Reservation Porata Smithy is my leader in the movement to end the decades of injustice being done to the community. I will be on his side till you all get justice, Mr. Modi said at the rally. The Madiga community constitutes at least 50% of the total scheduled caste in Telangana. The 2011 census puts the total SC at a little over 15% of the population of the state. For years, the Madiga community has said that the benefit of reservation under the SC category have been cornered by the Mela community, with the Madigas being left out. Struggle since 1994. The Madigas have been struggling since 1994 for sub-categorization, and Mr. Modi's announcement was considered an important step. BJP sources had told the Hindu the party was completely in favor of the move, as it would help consolidate the support of the three MS Madiga, Modi Raju, and Munnur Kapu communities in the run up to the 2024 Lok Sabha poll, if not the assembly election. Then no vote for veto. Supreme Court has done well to remove the veto power of governors. In a parliamentary democracy, governors do not have a unilateral veto over bills passed by the legislature. This is the crux of the Supreme Court's ruling in a case arising from the Punjab after Governor Banwarilal Purohit withheld assent to some bills passed by the state assembly on the pretext that these were adopted in an illegal session of the House. The court's reading of the scheme of Article 200, which deals with the grant of assent to bills, is in line with the core tenet of parliamentary democracy that an elected regime responsible to the legislature runs the state's affairs. While granting assent is a routine function, the other options, withholding assent of or reserving a bill for the president's consideration, have been subject of controversy. There is a proviso to the article which states that as soon as possible the governor may return the bill if it is not a money bill to the House for reconsideration, but when the bill is passed again with or without changes, he cannot withhold assent. The Supreme Court has now read the power to withhold assent, and the proviso in conjunction holding that whenever the governor withholds assent, he has to send the bill back to the legislature for reconsideration. This effectively means that the governor either grants assent in the first instance or will be compelled to do so after the bill's second passage. The court has done well to the point out that governors in a system that requires them to function mainly on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers cannot withhold action on bills and must act as soon as possible. This is a clear re- reprimand administered to governors who believe they can endlessly delay action on cabinet or legislative proposal because of the absence of a prescribed time frame. Mr. Purohit's stand that the particular session of the assembly was illegal because an urgent house was reconvened by the speaker on his own has been rejected. The court has ruled that the earlier session had only been adjourned and not prorogued. The verdict should not give any further scope for controversy over the role played by governors in the lawmaking process that culminates with their granting assent to bills, and must end the tussle between elected regimes and the centre's appointees. There is still some residual scope for controversy if, as a result of governors being divested of the power to reject bills unilaterally, they start referring bills they disapproved of to the president. Such an eventuality should not be allowed to arise. Then next, a need for climate smart agriculture in India. The two most important issues facing humanity in the 21st century are climate change and food insecurity. Some of the ongoing effects of the climate change, such as heat waves, flash floods, drought, and cyclones, are negatively influencing lives and livelihoods. The world's southern continent are reportedly experiencing severe drought due to climate change, which farmers sorry which negatively impacts agricultural production and farmers livelihood. Both population expansion and dietary changes are contributing to an increase in the demand for food. The effects of the environment on farms output only add to the difficulty. As a result of climate change, traditional farming practices are becoming less productive. Climate change is increasing the dangers faced by farmers, prompting them to re-evaluate their practices. Farmers are taking a variety of adaptation measures to reduce the negative effect of climate change. The need for a holistic strategy is driven by climate change dual challenges of adaptation and mitigation, and the pros- pressing need for agricultural production to rise by 60% by 2050 in order to fulfill food demand. As a viable option, climate smart agriculture CSA provides a holistic framework, the Food and Agriculture Organization said in 2019. Climate smart agriculture is an approach for transforming food and agriculture system to support sustainable development and safeguard food security under the climate change. CSA comprises three pillars or objectives: one, sustainably increase agricultural productivity and incomes, adapt and build resilience to climate change, and third, remove GHG greenhouse gas emissions where the possible. Dimension of this climate change. Climate smart practices include water smart, weather smart, energy smart, and carbon smart. They improve productivity, deal with land degradation, and improve soil health. The future impacts of climate change on agricultural productivity could be substantial. In India, crop yield decline owing to climate change between 2010 and 2039 could be as high as 9%. In order to combat climate change and sustainably boost agricultural output and revenue, a radical reform of the agricultural industry is required. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals aims to end hunger and enhance environmental management. CSS Foundation is in achieving these goals through sustainable agriculture and rural development. The National Action Plan on Climate Change emphasizes the role of climate resilient agriculture in India's adaptation measures. Programs such as the Soil Health Card Scheme use precision nutrient management to optimize agricultural methods. The concept of precision farming is still somewhat novel in India. While certain private companies offer services, the scope of these initiatives is extremely limited. Community supported efforts. CSS value is in minimizing and adjusting to the effect of climate change on agriculture is becoming widely acknowledged on a global scale. There has been a worldwide uptake in community supported agriculture efforts. These efforts are made in an attempt to create agricultural systems that are both resilient and environmentally friendly. Improvements in agroforestry, sustainable water management, and precision agriculture are all concrete examples of CSA ideas in action, and they are not limited by any one country. CSA promotes crop diversification, increases water efficiency, and integrates drought resilient crop types, all of which help lessen the disruptive effects of climate change. The importance of CSA lies in its ability to increase agricultural output while maintaining ecological stability. Though this correlation is not only a desired consequence but rather essential for long term food security and sustainable resource usage in a warming planet. By reducing exposure to climate related dangers and shocks, CSA increases resilience in the face of longer term stressors like shorter season and erratic weather patterns. In addition to these benefits, a significant outcomes of CSA implementation is the increasing economic autonomy of farmers. CSA causes a dramatic change in farming communities' economic and social structure by distributing information about and providing access to climate resilient methods. As the climate changes, farmers significantly, those already disadvantages can gain enormously from adopting climate climate smart techniques. The increasing popularity of CSA is a promising indicator for the future of biodiversity conservation. CSA's ecosystem-based approach and different crop variety help cropland and wild region coexist together. This collaborative effort helps to safeguard native plant species, keep pollinator pollution population stable, and mitigate the effect of habitat degradation. The problem may also work in reverse direction. The agricultural sector also produces a large amount of GHGs. The sector's share in GHG emission in 2018 was 17%. Therefore, CSA implementation is crucial for lowering GHG emission and protecting biodiversity. Furthermore, it aids in enhancing farmland carbon storage. The Paris Agreement global goal of limiting global warming by reducing GHG emission is tied directly to the success of the CSA agroforestry and carbon sequestration are two examples of CSA measures that could help India meet its international obligation and contribute to the global fight against climate change. Rather than being a rigid set of rules, CSA is more a flexible concept with a wide range of potential application. However, the most challenging aspect of dealing with global warming is to create localized responses. Therefore, investing in capital building programs and providing practical CSA tools and knowledge is essential. Production resources and are diminishing and demand for agricultural products is increasing. Thus, there is a need for resource efficient farming to cope with climate variability. CSA substantially contribute to climate adaptation, mitigation, and food security. Studies from the different climate smart techniques used in India show that they improve agricultural production, make agriculture sustainable and reliable, and reduce GHG emissions. One study from the Northwest Indo-Gangetic Plain or for wheat production shows that site-specific no tillage is advantageous for fertilizer management and can boost yield, nutrient usage efficiency, and profitability while lowering GHG emission. A unique juncture. The majority of Indian farmers are small or marginal, therefore, CSA can play a significant role in helping them increase their profits. The the intersection of climate vulnerability and agricultural importance places India at a unique juncture where CSA adoption is not merely desirable but essential. The National Adaptation Fund for Climate Change, the National Innovation on Climate Resilient Agriculture, Soil Health Mission, Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana, Pra- Param Pra- Parampaраगत कृषि विकास योजना, Biotech Kisan, and Climate Smart Village are a few examples of government initiatives in India focusing on CSA. Various public and private sector entities such as farmer producers, organizations, and NGOs are also working towards the adoption of CSA. CSA has the potential to assure the food security, empowers farmers, and protect our delicate ecosystem by merging innovation, resilience, and sustainability in the face of changing climate. The path of CSA stand out as a source of inspiration and transformation for a world working to ensure a sustainable future. नेक्स्ट दो आर्टिकल जो है सेंटर एग्जाम सर्ट इन फॉर्म परव्यू ऑफ आरटीआई एक्ट एंड नेक्स्ट जो है ट्रस्ट बिटवीन इंडिया एंड ऑस्ट्रेलिया विल हेल्प इंडो पैसिफिक रीजन. The union government has added the computer emergency response team (CERT-in) among a list of organizations that are exempted from the ambit of Right to Information Act (RTI). The CERT-in is the national nodal agency for responding to computer security incidents as and when they occur. One of its primary objectives is enhancing security awareness among common citizens. It functions under Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. There are 26 other intelligence and security organizations established by the Union government, such as the Intelligence Bureau, Research and Analysis Wing, Directorate of Enforcement, National Technical Research Organization that are exempt under RTI. The RTI Act enacted in 2005 said the legislation shall not apply to intelligence and security organizations specified in the second schedule, provided that the information pertaining to the allegation of corruption and human rights violations shall not be excluded. On Friday, the Department of Personnel and Training issued a notification stating that in exercise of powers conferred by Section 24 Clause 2 of RTI Act 2005-22 of 2005, the Centre hereby makes the following further amendments to the said Act, namely in the second schedule to the RTI Act 2005 after the serial number 26 and the entry relating thereto, the following serial number and entry shall be inserted, namely 27 Indian Computer Emergency Response Team. The last time an amendment was made to the second schedule of RTI was in 2016 when the Strategic Forces Command was added to the list of exempted organizations. Two other organizations of the Ministry of Defense, the Defense Research and Development Organization DRDO and Border Roads Development Board are also played in the second schedule. The CERT-in has been probing major cyber attacks in recent past. It was the first responder to the ransomware attack on November 23, 2022 at AIMS, which had crippled the hospital information system and e-hospital system for several days. Trust between India and Australia will help Indo-Pacific region. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar on Friday said it is the trust between like-minded partners such as India and Australia that is helping in efforts to secure a free, open, peaceful and prosperous Indo-Pacific region along with a rules-based international order. In his virtual address at 6th edition of Australia-India Leadership Dialogue, AILD, Mr. Jaishankar said a driving force of the relationship is the convergence is in understanding of and approach to the geostrategic environment, particularly in the Indo-Pacific region. The AILD has quite aptly used the phrase "bridges of Bharosa Trust" as one of its theme. He noted, "In this complicated world, it is the Bharosa or trust between like-minded partners such as India and Australia, along with others, that is helping us in our efforts to secure a free, open, peaceful, and prosperous Indo-Pacific region, along with a rules-based international order," Mr. Jaishankar said. His remarks come amid China's growing assertiveness in the Indo-Pacific region. Australian Foreign Ministry Penny Wong also virtually addressed the forum. The next is closely monitoring outbreak of avian influenza cases. According to government, then generic drugs for four rare diseases made available in India. There is low risk to India from both the avian influenza cases reported from China as well as the cluster of respiratory illness. The Health Ministry said on Friday the statement comes following reports indicating clustering of cases of respiratory illness in children in northern China, for which World Health Organization has also issued a statement. The ministry maintained that it is closely monitoring the reported outbreak of H9N2 cases and clusters of respiratory illness in children in northern China. It is, however, maintained that there is a need for strengthening surveillance among human animal husbandry and wildlife sectors and improving coordination. It is maintained that India is prepared for any kind of public health exigency. The ministry also noted that based on the currently available information, an increase in incidence of respiratory disease in China has been reported in last few weeks. The usual causes of respiratory illnesses in children have been implicated and there has been no identification for an unusual pathogen or any unexpected clinical manifestation, said the ministry. The ministry also informed that a meeting was recently held to discuss preparedness against human cases of avian influenza in the country against the backdrop of a human case of H9N2 avian influenza virus in October 2023 in China that was reported to WHO. The overall risk assessment by WHO indicates a low probability of human-to-human spread and low case fatality rate among human cases of H9N2 reported to WHO so far, it is said. According to a senior official, India is embarking on a One Health approach to adopt a holistic and integrated roadmap towards addressing such a public health issues. There has also been a significant strengthening of health infrastructure, especially since the COVID pandemic. The PM Ayushman Bharat Health Infrastructure Mission is developing capacities of health system and institutions across the continuum of care at all levels, he said. The next is generic drugs for rare disease made available in India. Providing relief to patients with rare disease across India, the Union Health Ministry has made available generic drugs to support the care and treatment of ailments: tyrosinemia type 1, Gaucher's disease, Wilson disease, and the Dravet-Lennox Gastaut syndrome. This means that the cost of these drugs will slashed by between 60 and 100 times of their current market value. The ministry is also in the process of making available drugs for more rare diseases, including phenyl phenylketonuria and hyperammonia over the next few months. The approval for these drugs are awaited, said VK Paul, Niti Ayog's member with expertise on health issues. He added that this initiative would also result in patients' cost dropping from crores to mere lakhs. A rare disease is a health condition of particularly low prevalence that affects a small number of people. It collectively afflicts 6% to 8% of the population in any country at any given time. So India could have 8.4 crore 4 crore to 10 crore such cases, said the ministry. Nearly 80% of these diseases are genetic in nature. To bring in these drugs, a special initiative was taken and discussions were held with the academia, pharma industries, organizations, and controller and the Department of Pharmaceuticals. The 13 rare diseases were prioritized. We particularly worked on sickle cell disease and on the syrups for children under 5 who cannot be administered in tablets, said Health Minister Mansukh Mandavya. This venture is purely a non-commercial venture guided only with the motive to serve those in acute need. For years, the health ministry, through various schemes, has been trying to financially help as many patients as possible. But this is a more sustainable measure for not just patients in India but also worldwide, he said. The next day, Israel releases 39 Palestinian while Hamas free 24 hostages. Israel confirmed on Friday that it released 39 Palestinian prisoners in line with the truce deal that saw 13 Israeli hostages freed by militants in Gaza hours earlier. Quadra- Quadura Fayers, who heads an advocacy group for prisoners, said 33 prisoners freed in the West Bank were handed to a team from the International Committee of the Red Cross. He said the remaining six were being freed from a Jerusalem lockup. The releases on both sides were part of the deal for a 4-day truce in the Israel-Hamas war that began on Friday. Over the next 4 days, 150 Palestinian prisoners and 50 Israeli hostages are to be freed. Meanwhile, Hamas released 24 hostages who had been held captive in Gaza for weeks, including 13 Israeli, 10 persons from Thailand, and one from the Philippines, according to Qatar. The agreement opened the way for sorely needed aid to flow into Gaza for beleaguered residents. It was also a moment of hope for families in Israel and elsewhere worried about loved ones taken captive during Hamas' October 7 attack, which triggered the war with truce start on Friday morning. Gaza's 2.3 million Palestinians saw quiet for the first time after 7 weeks of relentless Israeli bombardment which has killed thousands and driven three-quarters of the population from their homes. Rocket fire from Gaza militants into Israel went silent as well. Israel says the ceasefire could be extended if more hostages are released, but it has vowed to resume its massive offensive once the truce ends. Then last जो आज का आर्टिकल है फॉलिंग रिकवरी डिले इन रेजोल्यूशन डेंट आईबीसी सक्सेस. Falling recovery rates from 43% to 32% between March 2019 and September 2023, and an increase in the average resolution time from 324 to 653 days versus the stipulated 330 days have emerged as impediments to the success of the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code (IBC), according to a report by CRISIL Rating. There are two reasons for this: first, limited judicial bench strength and delays in identification and acknowledgement of default; second, significant delay in the pre-IBC administration stage, 50 days in fiscal 2022 increased from about 450 days in fiscal 2019 has suppressed recovery rates, the rating agency said. CRISIL has said since its inception in 2016, the IBC has improved credit culture in India by resolving a significant amount of stressed asset with better recovery rates compared with the previous mechanisms. Importantly, it has set such deterrents that large bad loans cases are getting sorted before reaching the IBC's gates, it is said. On average, creditors have realized 32% of the admitted claims and 169% of the liquidation value. Other mechanisms had an average recovery rate of 5 to 20%, Crystal said. So, friends, this is for all for today, and we will meet from tomorrow onwards with new news articles from the Hindu newspaper. So, till then, thank you, and we will meet from tomorrow onwards. Thank you.